Imagine growing up with no palace, no army, and no future. Now imagine that same boy would one day build the largest, contiguous empire in human history. His enemies feared his name. Entire kingdoms surrendered before his army even arrived. But Genghis Khan wasn't born a king. He was born into a world of betrayal, hunger, violence, and survival. Before he became one of history's greatest conquerors, he was just a boy fighting to stay alive. This is the incredible story of how one abandoned child changed the course of history forever. Our story begins in the harsh grasslands of Mongolia around the year 1162. A boy named Temujin was born into a small Mongol tribe. His father, Usuge, was a respected tribal chief who hoped his son would one day become a great leader. But fate had other plans. When Temujin was only 9 years old, his father was poisoned by a rival tribe while returning from a journey. Everything changed overnight. Without their leader, Temujin's family was abandoned by their own tribe. The people who had once promised loyalty simply walked away. Temujin, his mother, and his brothers were left alone on the endless Mongolian steppe with almost nothing to eat. Every single day became a fight for survival. They searched for wild berries, hunted small animals, and caught fish just to stay alive. The freezing winters were brutal. Food was scarce. Death was always close. But these impossible hardships forged something extraordinary inside the young boy. Instead of breaking his spirit, they made him stronger. Temujin learned that survival wasn't about being the strongest. It was about adapting, never giving up, and earning the loyalty of the people around you. The lonely boy wandering across the vast grasslands had no idea that one day millions of people would know his name. He would become Genghis Khan, and this was only the beginning. Temujin's struggle was far from over. Life on the Mongolian steppe was ruthless. Every sunrise brought a new battle for survival, and every sunset was a victory if you were still alive. But hunger wasn't his only enemy. Rival tribes saw Temujin as weak after his father's death. They believed his family would disappear forever. Instead, they made a decision that would change history. Temujin was captured by the Taishar tribe, the same people who had once been connected to his own family. They chained him with a heavy wooden collar, treating him like a prisoner with no future. For most people, this would have been the end, but not for Temujin. Late one night, while his captors were distracted, he made a daring escape. He ran across the dark Mongolian plains, knowing that if he were caught, he would almost certainly be killed. A sympathetic man named Sorkinsha secretly hid the young boy and protected him from the warriors searching for him. That single act of kindness saved the life of the future Genghis Khan. Temujin never forgot those who helped him. Years later, when he became a powerful ruler, he rewarded loyalty instead of noble birth. This became one of the greatest strengths of his empire. As he grew older, Temujin began gathering loyal friends and skilled warriors around him. They didn't follow him because he was born into power. They followed him because he had earned their trust. The lonely boy who once had nothing was slowly becoming a leader, and soon, the tribes of Mongolia would hear a name they would never forget. By the late 12th century, Temujin had transformed from a struggling survivor into a respected warrior, but Mongolia was still divided. Dozens of tribes fought each other for land, power, and revenge. Temujin believed that if the Mongols remained divided, they would never become truly powerful. So instead of simply defeating his enemies, he offered many of them a choice: join him and become part of something greater. His leadership was different from any ruler before him. He didn't care whether a man came from a noble family or a poor one. If someone proved their loyalty, bravery, and skill, they were rewarded. This earned him the trust of thousands of warriors. His army grew stronger with every passing year. In 1206, a historic gathering, known as the Kurultai, brought together the leaders of the Mongol tribes. For the first time in history, the tribes were united under one leader. That day, Temujin received a new title. He became Genghis Khan. No one knows the exact meaning of the title, but many historians believe it means something like universal ruler or oceanic ruler. It marked the beginning of a new era. Genghis Khan immediately began transforming his people into one of the most disciplined fighting forces the world had ever seen. Every soldier was expected to follow strict rules. Disobedience was punished. Loyalty was rewarded. His army was built on speed, discipline, and strategy, not just brute force. Mounted on fast horses, Mongol warriors could travel astonishing distances in a single day, while other armies were still marching. The Mongols had already surrounded their enemies. The world had never seen anything like them. And soon, kingdoms across Asia would begin to fear a name that echoed across the steppes: Genghis Khan. By the early 13th century, Genghis Khan was no longer fighting for survival. He was building an empire unlike anything the world had ever seen. One by one, powerful kingdoms began to fall. Cities that had stood for centuries surrendered before the Mongol army even arrived. Their greatest weapon wasn't just their swords, it was fear. The Mongols moved faster than any army of their time. Every warrior carried multiple horses, allowing them to travel incredible distances without slowing down. They struck without warning. Before their enemies could prepare, Mongol banners were already on the horizon. But speed alone didn't make them unstoppable. Genghis Khan was a military genius. He used spies to gather information before every battle. He studied the strengths and weaknesses of his enemies. Sometimes his soldiers pretended to retreat, luring enemy armies into a trap. The moment their opponents chased them, thousands of hidden Mongol horse archers surrounded them from every direction. It was a strategy that destroyed even the strongest armies. One of Genghis Khan's greatest campaigns was against the Khwarezmian Empire. After one of his trade caravans was attacked and his ambassadors were executed, Genghis Khan declared war. His response was swift and devastating. City after city fell before the Mongol advance. Within only a few years, one of the most powerful empires in Central Asia had completely collapsed. News of the Mongols spread across continents. Kings, generals, and entire nations began to fear one name: Genghis Khan. His empire continued, expanding farther than anyone had ever imagined, and this was still only the beginning. By 1327, Genghis Khan had achieved what many believed was impossible. From a poor, abandoned boy on the Mongolian steppe, he had built the largest contiguous empire in history. His armies had conquered vast lands stretching across Asia. Kings had fallen, empires had collapsed, and millions feared the sound of Mongol horses. But even the greatest conqueror could not conquer time. During his final military campaign against the Western Shi'ar kingdom, something unexpected happened. Genghis Khan suddenly died. To this day, historians still debate the exact cause of his death. Some believe he died after falling from his horse. Others believe illness claimed his life. And some legends tell an even more mysterious story. The truth may never be known. His death was kept secret from both his enemies and even many of his own soldiers. According to historical accounts, the Mongol army continued its campaign without revealing that their leader had died. They wanted to prevent their enemies from gaining hope. After his death, his body was carried back across the endless Mongolian plains. Legend says his burial place was hidden so carefully that no one has ever found it. Even today, the tomb of Genghis Khan remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. But something extraordinary happened next. Most empires collapse after losing their greatest leader. The Mongol Empire did the opposite. Under the leadership of his sons and grandsons, the empire continued expanding. Within just a few decades, the Mongols controlled territories from China to Eastern Europe. The dream of one man had become the largest land empire the world had ever seen, and his legacy was only growing stronger. When most people hear the name Genghis Khan, they think of war, conquest, and destruction. But the story of the Mongol Empire is far more complex than that. Yes, the Mongols built their empire through brutal warfare. Countless cities were destroyed, and millions of lives were lost. Yet, they also transformed the world in ways that still affect us today. Under Mongol rule, trade flourished across Asia and Europe. The famous Silk Road became safer than it had been for centuries. Merchants, travelers, scientists, and explorers could travel vast distances with far greater security. Ideas, inventions, cultures, and technologies spread faster than ever before. Paper, gunpowder, printing techniques, and scientific knowledge traveled across continents, helping shape the modern world. The Mongols also created one of history's most advanced communication systems. Their network of relay stations allowed messages to travel across thousands of kilometers with remarkable speed. It was a revolutionary achievement for its time. By the time the empire reached its greatest size, it stretched from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe. No empire in history had ever controlled so much connected land. Nearly 8 centuries later, the name Genghis Khan is still known around the world. Some remember him as a ruthless conqueror. Others see him as a brilliant military strategist and one of history's greatest leaders. History continues to debate his legacy. But one fact remains undeniable. The Mongol Empire changed the course of human civilization forever. And it all began with a poor boy named who refused to give up. If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Past Frontier, and join us as we uncover more incredible stories that shaped our world. Because history is never just about the past. It's the key to understanding our future.